Okay, welcome back to the channel. Now today we're looking at quadratic inequalities. So they're a little bit different to linear inequalities, and how we solve them is also a tiny bit different. So in this video, let's go through a series of steps to help you work out these quadratic inequalities. Now for the first one, we got to solve where this quadratic is less than 0. Now what we know is that this here is some sort of parabola. And what we need to do is work out where that parabola is less than 0. So to do this, what I'm going to do is first of all try and make a sketch of the quadratic and then have a look at where it's less than 0. So to do that, I'm interested in finding the roots of this quadratic. So remember, to find the roots or solutions, we need to set it equal to 0. So we'll have x squared minus x minus 6 equals to 0. I'm now going to solve it. So to do that, I think we can factorize this one. And this one factorizes quite nicely, I think, into x minus 3 and x plus 2. From here, I can get my solutions. So over here, I know x is equal to 3 and x is equal to minus 2. So using this, what we can do is make a sketch of this quadratic. So we know the roots are at 3 and at minus 2. So minus 2 here. And what I'm going to do is kind of exaggerate the way that I'm going to draw this quadratic. So here we go. So it's something like this. And now what I'm also going to do is, now that we've labelled some of our x values along this axis here, I'm just going to label a few more. So 4, 5 and 6 on this side. We'll have 2, 1 and 0 in here. And we'll have minus 1, and on this side minus 3 and minus 4, etc. Now what we needed to do was find out where this graph is less than 0. Now when it's less than 0, what it means is underneath y is 0. So underneath the x-axis. That's what it's asking for. So when it says the graph is less than 0, what you're looking for is where it is under the x-axis. And that's because on the x-axis, we know that's also y is equal to 0. So we're finding where this graph is less than 0. So what it's referring to is this part of the graph, because you can see that all of this part of the graph is underneath the x-axis. And what we do is try to describe this region of the graph using the x values that apply to that section. So for this graph, what can you see is happening to the x values here? Well, the x values are becoming smaller than 3 as we go down here. But then at the same time, if we look at the zigzag part again, as we go off this way, the x values are bigger than minus 2. And so our final solution to this would be the x values are smaller than 3, but bigger than minus 2. And so we could leave it like this. Alternatively, we could write it in set notation as well. In set notation, we would write the x values here are greater than minus 2, but less than 3. Or we could also put them separately, and we could write it like this. We say the x values on this side are where x is greater than minus 2. And it's where they intersect with where the x values are less than 3. There we go. So you can write it in any of those 3 formats there. Now for the next one, let's start by doing exactly the same thing. We need to try and create a sketch of it. And so to do that, we first of all need to solve it, find the roots. So x squared minus 4 is equal to 0. That there, I think, is the difference of 2 squares. So this is going to factorize as well into x plus 2 and x minus 2. And so if I know that, I know x is minus 2 here and x is positive 2 here. Now that we've got the roots, we can create a good sketch of the graph. So you've got minus 2 over here, positive 2 here. Now we know it's a positive quadratic, so again, we'll just exaggerate the way you draw this. Like that there. Fill in some x values to the right as well, so 3, 4, and on this side we'll have 1 and 0, again, minus 1 here, and on this side, minus 3, minus 4. Now, this time, we're looking for where the graph is greater than 0. So we're looking for where the graph is above the x-axis. So above the x-axis. And so we can see it's above the x-axis over here and over here. So let's start by writing an inequality for this part. What happens to the x numbers as the graph goes off in this direction? The x numbers are becoming bigger than 2. So we can say x here is bigger than 2. Now on this side, we can see that as we go off in this direction, the x numbers are getting smaller than minus 2. So for this part, x is less than minus 2. So how can we throw this together into some set notation? We could say this. Say on this side, x is less than minus 2. And for the other side, x is greater than 2. But now remember, there is no intersection here between these values. These x values are just bigger than 2. These are just less than 2. So what we do this time is use a union sign to connect them together. Over here we could use an intersection because there was overlap here, because the x numbers here are less than 3 and here bigger than minus 2. So they do overlap. When there's overlapping, we can use the intersection. When there's no overlapping there, we use the union sign. So hopefully that's all clear. Okay, so that's 2 inequalities solved. We'll look at a few more in the next video.